LATD, what's good? We are once again back in here with another video, y'all. As always, I'm Rodney, aka RG from the 843, aka Rodney Not So Rich, and I'm here as always with my co-host, partner in crime.
Yes, sir. This is your boy Jay, aka King J. All hail the king. How y'all boy doing, man? What we here for, bro?
About to be a discussion that I've wanted to have for almost 10 years. The Star Wars acolyte. And the current state of the Star Wars community.
Yep.
So a little background. I'm a longtime Star Wars fan. Star Wars was the first movie franchise that I ever became a fan of. Star Wars was really the first media franchise I was ever a fan of.
Same.
Way back in the 2000s, way before I was a Dragon Ball / anime fan. Before I was into any of the stuff that I love now, like, you know, games or whatever, it was always Star Wars. In fact, for my PS2, one of the very first games that I ever got was Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. Still have that to this day in my house right now.
Oh, yeah.
And also, furthermore, I had Battlefront 2, because, I mean, who didn't? Classic game.
Classic, yep.
They ruined the re-release of that from what I heard. But that's a whole different discussion for a whole different day.
Yeah. I mean, we can still talk about it today, but anyway, Force Unleashed, one of my favorite Star Wars games of all time.
Oh yeah, I had Force Unleashed and I played Force Unleashed. I had Force Unleashed for the DS.
Okay.
And I played Force Unleashed 2 for PS3. I think by that point I had a PS3 when it came out. So, you know, basically anything to do with Star Wars I was invested in. I was, you know, into the movies, the TV shows, the games, the comics, the novels, basically anything to do with Star Wars, I've invested sometimes. The toys, you know, I was a collector of that, you know, the Legos, everything. You know, I was deeply invested in the Star Wars and the lore for a long time. Still am. Die-hard fan. Grew up with the Clone Wars. Cad Bane is still my favorite bounty hunter in Star Wars history.
Boba Fett.
Hey, that's a whole debate for another day. But yeah, so needless to say, I've been a huge Star Wars fan my entire life. And, you know, growing up, I was raised on kind of both. Because you kind of had both the prequels and the sequels out around the time that I was getting into Star Wars. So I was never really one of these prequel haters because I grew up with the prequels. So I see them as Star Wars in the same way that the original trilogy is.
Oh, yeah, most def.
So, you know, growing up with all of that, being a Star Wars fan and everything, I remember like yesterday when Disney acquired the rights to Star Wars after George Lucas sold them for, I believe it was at least $1 billion. I think it might have been $2 billion. It was around there.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah, I remember the news broke in 2013, and you know, immediately, of course, the fandom, we're gonna get to them, but of course, the fandom didn't quite like the idea of Disney acquiring Star Wars, whatever the case may be.
I'm one of them.
And I remember, we'll get to that. I remember when Force Awakens came out. Now, I was one of these people where I was like, let's see what they do with it before we just flat out just hate what's going on.
Right.
Let's give it a chance to succeed. So, fast forward about 3 years, the first trailer for Force Awakens rolled around, and I was very excited. I couldn't wait for it. Like I said, I'm a massive Star Wars fan, been my whole entire life. So, it was really surreal to really know that I was going to get to experience a Star Wars film, a new Star Wars film in theaters for the first time. Because, you know, growing up, we kind of missed that era where they were in theaters. Obviously, the original trilogy came out in the late 70s and the early 80s, so we weren't nowhere near alive. Phantom Menace came out in 99. Attack of the Clones came out in 2002. Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005. So we didn't really get a chance to really experience Star Wars the way that a lot of these older Star Wars fans did.
Right.
So I was excited not just for the fact that it was a new Star Wars movie, but for the fact that it was my generation Star Wars. So, you know, Force Awakens, fast forward, 2015, came out. And it seemed like at the time the fan base was pretty satisfied. A lot of people felt that it did a good job of reintroducing Star Wars, kind of bringing it back to what it had been before the prequels, quote unquote, ruined them or whatever.
It didn't ruin no Star Wars. It didn't ruin them, but
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I remember like the early days of when Force Awakens was first released. everybody seemed to be pretty happy. It was critically acclaimed.
Yep.
It was at the time like the second or third highest grossing movie ever made. It's like one of the first movies to ever make $2 billion. Oh yeah, no, this thing made money. Force Awakens made a ton of money. But yeah, I noticed about 4 to 5, maybe 6 months after Force Awakens came out, how the narrative started to shift, and people were starting to go from, oh, this is a great movie, to, oh, this is just a retread of A New Hope, which I understand that criticism, but I feel like there was enough stuff that was done with it to where it was kind of like you could argue that it was enough of its own thing. It had its own identity, and this was a stepping stone at the time for the second and third movies in the trilogy.
Right.
All right. So yeah, that was around the time that I first noticed that the Star Wars community can be a little bit toxic or whatever the case may be. Because I wasn't really cognizant for when the prequel hate was going on like that.
Right.
I became a Star Wars fan and was really aware of what was going on in the fandom and the community way after the fact.
Yeah, same.
Go ahead.
My whole thing with that is, like, I didn't become a Star Wars fan until, like, way later.
Yeah.
And, yeah, The Force Awakens really wasn't a bad movie.
It wasn't.
We'll get to the later on in the video, but it really wasn't a bad movie. It was solid for what it was. It's surprising that they brought back Harrison Ford in it, you know.
Yeah, they brought back everybody.
Yeah. But when The Last Jedi came out.
Oh, yeah. This is when, and this is what brings me more towards my current attitude towards the fandom. When Last Jedi came out, you know, they had a few people complaining about Force Awakens, but overall, it was still generally regarded as a solid movie, a solid entry point for the trilogy. But when Last Jedi came out, I remember the reviews first came out, and I was very excited for the reviews and the reception because it was critically acclaimed. I was like, oh, so this is going to be a really good entry in the franchise. A lot of people was thinking that this was going to be the empire of the trilogy. So when it came out, and I remember people saying stuff like, this is the best Star Wars movie since Empire, this, that, and the third, I couldn't have been more excited. And when I saw it and then got out of theaters the night that I did, I loved it. I loved Last Jedi. I was a huge fan of Last Jedi. You know, fight me in the comments, whatever the case may be. But
I'm about to fight you right now.
But nah, for me, Last Jedi, I genuinely really enjoyed it. Still love it to this day. I know it has its issues or its problems or whatever, but I feel like this was really when the fandom really kind of showed a lot of their true colors, because the backlash and just the overall just amount of toxicity and just vitriol and negativity that was hurled towards Last Jedi, and not just the movie itself, but the actors, the families of the actors, the director, all of this stuff going on for just no reason. I'm like,
right. Because I remember they were getting on rave for being too overpowered, too quick or something like that. And I said that at first, but I'm like, well, that wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah.
But when I watched Last Jedi, I'm kind of the complete opposite of it, of what you were thinking of it. Because really just what they did with Luke, making him just another hermit on a distant planet, and then kind of like making his character seem like a lot weaker, because the thing is, he wants to kill Kylo Ren, his nephew, but he was ready to save his daddy, who, you know, was the biggest warlord and one of the biggest villains in cinematic history.
His grand, yeah.
He wanted to save his dad, but the thing is, he saw the dark side in his nephew. Now you want to kill him?
Okay, yeah.
And then what they did with it. That's the biggest reason why I wasn't a big fan of the movie.
I understand that, but for me personally, I did like that aspect because it's like he fell down, but he found redemption. Luke has always been my favorite Star Wars character, and I didn't mind what they did with him for sure.
You should be more mad than me, to be honest.
I wasn't mad at it at all, to be honest with you.
Go ahead,
I enjoyed it. But yeah, and then Rise of Skywalker came out. I hate Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I never liked that movie whatsoever. I think that's the weakest movie in the trilogy. And overall, my general opinion of the prequels, or the sequels rather, I loved Force Awakens and Last Jedi as one story, kind of that happened back to back. But Rise of Skywalker, to me, wasn't a satisfying conclusion to the trilogy in any way, shape, or form. I feel like as as individual movies, I love The Force Awakens and I love The Last Jedi, but as a trilogy, I think it's easily the weakest trilogy that
definitely
Star Wars has, as far as like, you know, the trilogy of trilogies.
Definitely.
Episodes 1 through 9, obviously, I think that as it stands as a trilogy, it failed in every aspect.
Definitely.
And this is where we get to Disney. A lot of it for sure had to do with Disney and the way that, and the philosophy around planning or lack thereof planning for each and every one of these movies, because when Force Awakens first came out, it was announced that there was no clear roadmap and or real destination as far as where they wanted to take the trilogy. They basically kind of just they made Force Awakens, and then they just sat the next director down and said, have at it. And I think that because of that, as much as I like Last Jedi, I understand why people don't like it as far as like a middle chapter in the trilogy, because it just did so much to the point to where it was like, you know, I don't know how I can describe it. It's kind of like with Last Jedi, they just kind of did too much within that movie that was like had a sense of finality to it. You know, Snoke died. You know, just all of these different things that were set up in Force Awakens that were kind of thrown away in Last Jedi. Which led to a movie in Rise of Skywalker that didn't really know what it needed to do, because so much of what it would have done was already done in the movie before.
Right, because the thing is with Rise of Skywalker, it was just too much of. Now you hear me talk about the cameos a lot on this channel and everything, and why some of them might be the biggest, you know, blunt cameos can make or break a movie for me. And this one broke Rise of Skywalker because they tried to be too, like, they tried to.
It was too much fan service.
Thank you. It was too much fan service.
It was fan service for the sake of being. Because you could tell when Rise of Skywalker was made, they did it from the perspective of, we need to appease these fans because people ain't like Last Jedi.
And that's the same. It's the same case with a sequel trilogy for The Mandalorian. Now, The Mandalorian seasons 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 being two great seasons, but the third one being a lot like Rise of Skywalker in the sense that you already pretty much had a finale with the second season. Same thing with The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi being like the finale of the whole trilogy.
Yeah, but it was just the middle chapter.
Exactly. But when you got movies, season 3 of Mandalorian compared to Rise of Skywalker, like formatically, that's when it's like the same, because it's like they had nothing else really to tell. Like my thing is, Last Jedi wasn't that bad as I'm making it out to be. I just hated what they did with Luke, but Rise of Skywalker just kind of butchered everything that kind of made Star Wars great before. I feel like bringing back Palpatine.
I didn't like that. Yeah.
And then saying Rey is his granddaughter, and then next thing you know, she takes the Skywalker name at the end. I'm like,
didn't like that.
I'm like, nah, keep your Palpatine.
Absolutely didn't like that. See, because the thing that I think worked with The Force Awakens was the whole mystery of her parents and everything, and I really like what Rian Johnson did with that in Last Jedi, where it was basically like her parents were nobody. Because she had this idea of who they were. You know, she's of some great destiny in her mind. Just like Luke, who she grew up idolizing, right? And so I think what I liked about that was it kind of basically was like the message that you don't have to come from something to be great. You can you can, you know, make your own greatness. And I really like what they did with Last Jedi with that. But then they went back in Rise of Skywalker, and then they just kind of like came up with this plot line out of nowhere that now all of a sudden Palpatine has a granddaughter. There was no evidence of him even having children. So this just comes up out of nowhere. Rise of Skywalker is just so lazily written. It's just so lazily written, but I think a lot of it just has to do with the overall direction that Disney took. They didn't do a good job of making a roadmap. They didn't say this was supposed to happen in the first, then this is supposed to happen in the second, this is supposed to happen in the third. They gave each director too much control. So as a result, the director may have made the movie that they felt that they needed to make, but they didn't think about the overall arcing like story. They didn't think about the overarching like narrative.
No, I think I might have to disagree with you on that.
Really? Okay.
Mainly because I feel like no, okay, maybe this is more with the TV shows is why I think this, but I feel like a lot of the times the studio comes in and kind of interferes more with what they're working on.
Yeah.
Like for example, The Mandalorian season 3. You know, they were setting up Bo-Katan and then Djarin to pretty much have this battle for who's going to be leader of Mandalore or the Mandalorians now. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't happen. Yeah. You set up, they have to fight in combat. That's the only way the Darksaber can be shifted in power and everything can be taken away. But then in season 3, you just say, oh well. Here's the Darksaber. You beat somebody that I couldn't, so here you go. Now you're technically the leader. Like why are you setting up all this stuff to happen, but then don't follow through with it? Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. And see, so this kind of brings me to like, you know, I guess one of the focal points, if not the focal point of this video, the Acolyte and just the backlash and the controversy surrounding it. For me personally, I haven't seen, full disclosure, I haven't seen the Acolyte, so maybe I'm ignorant to a degree. Right. But I feel like I'm on episode 1. I got about 20 minutes left in it.
I feel like this whole controversy and everything around it is just the same old rehashed Disney killed Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy ruined Star Wars. Just basically the same stuff that they've been complaining about over and over again for the last almost decade since Force Awakens came out. You're just seeing over and over and over again. They're review bombing it, talking about it killed Star Wars. But I mean, in the last 10 years alone, Star Wars has been killed over and over again according to these people. Right. And I'm just kind of tired of like the narrative being that Disney has made Star Wars woke, this, that, and the third. And just all this foolishness just about how Star Wars is dead. And, you know, I feel like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing Disney of criticism whatsoever because there's a lot that Disney has done that is worthy of criticism. Don't get me wrong. I criticize the sequel trilogies, the sequel trilogy. I criticize that all the time. I hold them accountable when it comes to that.
Right. Same.
I don't care for it too much. Book of Boba wasn't great.
It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
It wasn't terrible, but
it was more disappointing than
it was definitely more disappointing. I agree with that. Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 I love. Haven't seen the third.
Third one wasn't even bad. It was just disappointing.
I loved Ahsoka. I can't wait for the next season.
Gotta finish it.
Definitely enjoyed that. But I just feel like, you know, the level of backlash and just like, you know, on Twitter, you know, people are talking all this trash about, and I just feel like I said, it's not devoid of criticism, but I think that for it to be 10 years later almost, and these people are still complaining about the same thing, rehashing the same thing, and a lot of it is like, to be fair, a lot of it is them criticizing, you know, poor writing and direction or whatever, but I think a lot of it also is just people just being mad just for the sake of being mad. I think Star Wars has gotten to a point, and if you ask me, Star Wars is one of, if not the most toxic fan base, because I think Star Wars is one of the only fan bases where it's like you get rewarded and you become a star in the community by just trashing everything that comes out that has to do with it. Right. I think Star Wars has gotten to a point where you got grifters in the community who just, you know, they use buzz phrases like Kathleen Kennedy ruined Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy's about to be fired because she's doing her job so terribly. Star Wars has been killed by Disney. You know, you just hear these same phrases, and it just has gotten to a point where I almost feel like there isn't nuance in the Star Wars community as far as like criticism for any of it. Because I think nowadays it's gotten to a point to where it's like anything that's perceived as not that great is like considered to be the fall of Star Wars, or it's considered to be the destruction of our childhoods and this, that, and the third. And I just feel like, first of all, for y'all to be grown men and y'all are still constantly complaining, it's like, go outside. Yeah. Go outside and focus on something other than trashing some fictional movies and or games or TV shows that you just don't like.
Right.
I think these people just take Star Wars too serious. I think they made it to where it's like it's their identity to hate Star Wars.
Right.
And I just think that it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's like that with a lot of things, not just with Star Wars, but
I feel like Star Wars might be the worst example of it, though.
But oh yeah, it definitely is the best example of it though. Because my thing is, I can get behind them saying poor writing. That's fine.
For sure. That's fine.
Yeah, I can get behind them saying poor writing, poor direction. What are you doing with the story? Every time they go back to the same old. Being a Jedi is about this. Being a Jedi is about that. I thought the Jedis were the good guys type thing. You know what I'm saying? And keep kind of referring back to Han Solo, the same 9 characters that we met back in all the movies. You know what I'm saying? Episodes 1 through 9. And I can get that. I can get behind that. But once you start kind of going into the territory of, oh, this is so woke now, that's when I'm like, okay, if you're going to hate on it for the right reason. Because if you're hating on because of the way somebody lives or especially the way somebody looks, I feel like those criticisms are invalid.
Or maybe, they're invalid.
Like
they're not legit, arguments. Because you got people saying stuff like, the Acolyte, this isn't George Lucas's Star Wars. And for me,
it very much is George Lucas's Star Wars.
But my problem with that is that a lot of these people who scream, "Oh, we want George Lucas back. George needs to come back and say Star Wars." These are the same people that forced Star Wars out of his hand to begin with, because Star Wars since like '99 has been ruined, quote unquote, because you've had the prequels, which a lot of people hated the prequels at the time. They've grown in reception and esteem as the years have gone on. But you know how many people there were that were outright calling for George Lucas to be terminated and for George Lucas to be fired, and George Lucas doesn't understand Star Wars. George Lucas ruined our childhoods. And it's crazy how a lot of the people who were saying those things back then are now sitting down and saying, we want George back. So it's just kind of like, for me personally, that's an example of how I just don't think that there's any winning with a lot of the people in this fan base. And it's just always wanting to be angry and to always have some sort of issue with something.
Right.
There's just no winning with these people anymore.
Right. And it's just like, but like I said, it's just like that in general. Like, everybody has something to complain about this. Now, for example, with that being said, I'm going to watch The Acolyte. We're going to do a whole full series recap, but review on it. Yeah. But, it's just like, it's like I said, if you're going to hate something, hate it for the right reasons. Don't just hate it because you're not getting quote unquote represented enough in the movie. Like, my thing is, shout out to Double Toasted when Corey said this on their Acolyte video. I mean, y'all get to see referring to our melanin deficient counterparts. Y'all get to watch yourselves on screen for like centuries upon centuries. I think you'll be okay with a couple of episodes not being about you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And to be fair, I'm not thinking that a lot of people that criticize modern Star Wars, I hope it's it's a small minority of people.
Right. Now, let me get to that too. Like, when I say that, I mean the ones that are more always
vocal about certain things.
Right.
I feel like a lot of the criticisms are valid, and I get it. But the problem with this community and this fan base now is that it's so much so that valid criticism and nuance is drowned out for a lot of like these buzzword phrases and a lot of these like, clearly agenda, I guess, driven people.
Right.
Who just don't like seeing certain things with their Star Wars. Right. So I think that part of it is just that I don't mind criticism in Star Wars at all. I don't mind that media be criticized. But I think that the fan base has gotten so toxic with a certain demographic and a certain sector of people to where it's like any room for real valid nuance and criticism, like bad writing, bad dialogue, all of those kinds of things have gotten drowned out by stuff like, oh, it's woke. Go woke, go broke, just all of this foolishness. And like, whenever you see people, have a thumbnail and the title is stuff like Disney Star Wars fails, Kathleen Kennedy ruins, Star Wars or whatever, that's just clearly people grifting and people trying to profit off of a certain sector of the fan base that they know is gonna listen. They just tell these people whatever they want to hear.
Right.
They don't actually speak with any kind of nuance, any sort of critical thinking.
Right.
It's just Star Wars is bad, and let me tell you why.
Right.
Let me hear it over and over again. And these people are getting money from this too.
Exactly, like Firecracker from The Boys.
Yeah.
You know, we got a new video up about that.
For sure, shout out.
Y'all go watch that out too.
Shout out the
But
Boys
it's like,
sure.
but yeah, no, you were exactly right. And like I said, it's not all of them, but it's just that those little that small sect of people that keep doing all this, bringing all this up, and it's not even just with Star Wars. It's like I said, it's with everything. Like even when Black Panther came out, they were calling that movie woke. Shoot, there's plenty of people in that we went to school with talking about it was racist. So, I mean,
what can you do?
But like, yeah, what can you do? But it's like Star Wars, like you said, and I agree with you. And as far as
I feel like Star Wars is really for everyone.
Yeah, Star Wars is definitely for everyone. Like Star Wars is a critical phenomenon, bro. Like I love Star Wars. Like as y'all, I keep pointing to this right here. Like the Mandalorian sect is my favorite. The Mandalorian faction is my favorite faction in Star Wars. I wish they would tell more stories about that. But just because something may not be going your way, that doesn't make it automatically bad.
And that's how I feel about it. For me personally, like I said, there's a lot of Star Wars media that has come out since Disney acquired it that I haven't been the biggest fan of. But when that happens, I watch it. Okay, it wasn't for me. I move on.
Exactly.
I wasn't mad because Boba Fett wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
And that's the thing. Boba Fett wasn't even that bad. It was still good. You at least got to saw what happened to him after he escaped the Sarlacc pit. How and after he escaped the Sarlacc pit and everything, it still touched on that. Those were cool scenes. We still saw him in Mandalorian season 2, and it's like it's not a bad show. It's not. A lot of what Star Wars has done in the past couple years really has not been that bad. Like you had people been begging for a Clone Wars season 7. You got that. That was fire.
You got Bad Batch. I heard a lot of good things about that. Tales of the Jedi. Ahsoka was great.
Yep. So it's like to me they're all kind of on a win streak.
Yeah.
But at the same time with Acolyte, according to different reviews that I've been watching and seeing, this might be kind of where the win streak kind of slows down.
Yeah, and I think that's my whole thing is that it's like they're just so hyperbolic now. It's just like, you know, you get some good shows and you get some good movies here and there. You drop one show that people may not like, and now Star Wars is completely ruined again, all over again. It's just like, y'all can't make up your mind. My thing is that not everything that's Star Wars related is going to be great or even good. Right. Like I said, there's plenty of Star Wars media that isn't great, and that's fine. That doesn't affect my love for the franchise.
Right.
You know, I didn't tell you the truth, for years, I didn't really like Rogue One like that. That didn't stop me from loving Star Wars as a whole. I need to rewatch Rogue One though, because it's been a minute, and you know it was on TV the other day. I kind of caught some scenes here, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I might need to revisit this movie.
Go ahead and rewatch Rogue One.
But yeah, Rogue One, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I can't stand Rise of Skywalker. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Book of Boba Fett, but I didn't hate it. I love Mandalorian, so it's been a lot of mixed up and downs for Star Wars for me, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna sit here and throw the whole franchise away. I don't love every episode of One Piece. That doesn't mean I don't still love it.
Exactly.
As a whole.
Exactly. My thing is too, Rogue One is honestly my favorite Star Wars movie. Like a lot of the extra universe stuff is my favorite part.
Oh, for sure.
It's my favorite aspects of Star Wars because it goes deeper into the lore.
Oh yeah.
And it's like. And it's like exactly what you said. Don't discount the whole thing just because one aspect of it is bad.
Yeah, and that's like my biggest issue is that they're just so hyperbolic. Is, you know, one bad episode of a show ruined the whole franchise.
Nah, you
really think that Disney ruined the whole franchise just because of one episode of Acolyte y'all didn't like?
Right.
But what happened Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2? What happened to the greatness that they produced with some of these games that have come out?
Exactly, like Jedi Survivor.
Jedi Survivor, those games wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Star Wars being owned by Disney.
Exactly.
You know,
same thing with Marvel.
Yeah, so we've gotten good content. So my thing is that I treat Star Wars like I treat anything else. You take the good content that you like, you take that, and anything you don't like,
don't
you
watch
don't like it, and you don't move, and you just move on.
Yeah, don't watch it.
It's not the end of the world. It's not gonna like destroy y'all's childhood.
Right.
That's my whole thing. It's just like people just take Star Wars so serious. It's just like I just never seen people just so seemingly they depend on Star Wars being great in order to feel like they have a reason to live. It's just like, come on,
it's kind of like a lot of sports fans out there. Me being one of them, you know. It's like that with anything too.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have those fans.
But Star Wars is definitely still a phenomenon. It's still a great franchise. I'm not like you said. It's not just because this aspect of it is maybe kind of mediocre. That doesn't make it automatically all the way bad. You know what I'm saying? We still got legends in this show. You can still watch and read all the comic books. You can still play all the video games. Where's all the energy for them?
Yeah, exactly.
At least the game's been good.
Yeah,
enjoy it. Go enjoy that.
But that's the thing though. When they're unanimously agreed to be quality, you're not gonna have the same ability to like milk this whole narrative that Star Wars is trash.
Right.
It's like they hate to see Star Wars win because when Star Wars win, they lose money because they built their whole persona and their whole channel on just hating it.
Right.
But yet they claim to love it.
Right.
I just don't get that. There's a saying that nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans, and I agree with that.
Right.
Because I've been seeing it for the last 10 years almost.
Movie wise, like when it comes cinematically, comparably to like video game fans, Star Wars are like 2K fans.
Yeah.
2K has always been one of those has always been one of those games where it's had like a good start, but as of late it hasn't really been that good in the eyes of people. But the thing is, the game is still playable. It's still like Star Wars. It's still watchable. It's still playable. It's just because one aspect of the game is bad, like the My Career and the whole different microtransactions, doesn't mean the whole game is trash automatically. Go play a different play style. Go play a different playthrough. It ain't like it's Madden. It ain't like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I wish I could say that because I don't play them games. So,
but that's just like in a little analogy.
I get what you mean though.
But it's like just because one aspect of the game is bad don't throw the whole thing away. It ain't like you're watching another house party.
Yeah, that's
what? Another house party 2 and 23.
Oof.
Or was it 22? Either way, y'all. There's 23.
Yeah.
Either way, y'all get my point. You know, so it's like just don't trash the whole thing just because you don't like one thing about
that's
the game.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like just move on. Like if y'all like out there, like that's fine. But for you to sit here and review bomb it and just do the most, it's just like, man, that's just such a waste of time, man.
Right. Like the Fast and Furious movies. Those movies are kind of on the decline because
they've been on the decline.
But it's like, but you don't see people constantly going on and on about them. Like, oh, Fast and Furious will never be the same again. Everybody knows Fast and Furious ain't gonna be the same again.
I just don't think people take Fast and Furious as serious as they take Star Wars, though. I think with Star Wars, people are just so serious about it. It's like, when was the last time y'all even had fun with this as fans?
Right.
It's like that's the thing. I feel like Star Wars, it's just not fun to be a fan and be as in community with it as it was before. Because I just feel like it's just so much negativity in the fan base to the point to where it's just like, it's almost like there's no way to even enjoy a lot of this stuff. Because I feel like, why don't y'all talk about the stuff that y'all do like? Like, why is it always so much anger and so much energy for the stuff that y'all hate? Like, I get y'all don't like it, but why not just move on and focus on the good?
Preach.
Because we're going to have good Star Wars content again.
Come on, Pastor.
Yes, sir. This new Star Wars Outlaws game that been previewed as of the last year by Ubisoft looks solid. But I think they're complaining about that too. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised neither. And on top of that, Ubisoft isn't necessarily.
That's kind of fair, to be honest with you. People are cautiously optimistic, which I completely understand that because we know Ubisoft's history at this point.
Yeah, so like I said, all of Ubisoft's games have never even been bad. They've just been mid to great. They
ain't had a standout game in a few years, if you ask me.
Right, and they're pretty.
Origins.
Crazy enough is you could consider them the Star Wars franchise of video gaming, to be honest.
In a way.
But anyway, yeah, Star Wars Outlaws doesn't look bad. But
I'm excited to see what it is. It'll probably be the first Star Wars game I purchased since
Survivor,
Fallen Order.
Oh, you didn't play Jedi Survivor?
No, I didn't play Survivor.
Jedi Survivor, that's pretty good.
I heard it was really good. I need to get on it.
Yeah.
I mean, as a longtime Star Wars fan, yeah, I definitely check for it. But yeah, no, and for me, just that's pretty much my thoughts on this subject, this issue. I just feel like with Star Wars, when it all boils down to it, it's just like what Snoke said. Darkness, light. What was it? Darkness rises and light to meet it, or something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a cycle. You're gonna have Star Wars media you don't like, and then you're gonna have media you do like. That's how it's always gonna be. It doesn't matter what y'all got to say. Disney's not surrendering Star Wars anytime soon. It's too lucrative, makes too much money. Now, can we ask for better stories? Can we ask for better direction? Can we ask for better character development? 100%. I'm there with y'all on that. I'm 100% with you have anything to add to that?
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, yes, that was my answer to your question.
Well, okay then. But yeah, no. So, like I said though, we don't mind better. Can we ask for better stories? Yes. Can we ask for better direction of the franchise? 100%. Those are valid criticisms, and those are things that do need to be addressed. But this other stuff like this woke and this, that, and the third.
Leave that
somewhere.
Yeah, throw that in the trash.
We're not trying to hear that in 2024. That's old. That's so old. That's just so dated. Like that same old grift. Y'all are still using them same buzzwords that y'all been using. Like if y'all are gonna complain, get some new material.
Heck yeah.
Write some new material. Like it's like these YouTubers just be sharing notes with each other. It's like, what are you gonna complain about today? Oh, you're going to complain about the fact that it's woke, quote unquote. All right, if you take that topic, I'm going to go ahead and talk about how Disney's being ruined or Disney's ruining Star Wars again. I'm going to talk about how the franchise is being destroyed by Kathleen Kennedy. So, you talk about this today, I talk about this today, and tomorrow we'll reverse.
Right.
Like, get some new material.
So tomorrow I'm going to talk about how it's woke, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you're going to talk about Kathleen Kennedy?
I'm going to talk about Kathleen Kennedy.
Okay, bet.
And how George needs to come back.
Bet. Stay tuned for that video. That's not happening. It's a joke.
No, definitely not. But yeah, no. In conclusion, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, I'll always love Star Wars. I'll always appreciate what it did for me as a kid, what it continues to do for me.
Same.
And I'm just going to continue to consume Star Wars media. And if I like it, I like it. If I don't like it, that's perfectly fine.
It is what it is.
That's perfectly fine. You think I like every episode of Dragon Ball? You think I like every episode of Naruto?
Especially GT.
Exactly. But that's a whole different conversation. GT ain't ruined the franchise for most people, though.
If anything, it made it better.
It happened, and people talk about it and they acknowledge it. If anything, people actually kind of appreciate GT more now.
Right.
Because of Super Saiyan 4 and things like that. Because everybody wanted GT characters in Sparking Zero.
Exactly. And everything it brought to the table.
Exactly. You take the good with the bad. GT's storytelling wasn't that good. It definitely wasn't anywhere near Z or the original Dragon Ball.
But it brought us iconic transformations and villains.
Exactly. And so when we really think about GT, we only remember the good stuff about it. When we think about Dragon Ball GT, we're not talking about the fact that first season was weak. We're not talking about the fact that a lot of the main characters in years past were sidelined. All we remember is the great stuff. Super 17, Baby, and Omega. Shenron. We remember those things and we value and we treasure those things. We're not looking at GT because GT wasn't that good as a whole. That means the whole franchise is destroyed. Come on now.
Yeah. People, but yeah, my 2 cents is like I said, if you're gonna dislike something, dislike it for the right reason, bro.
I agree.
Don't dislike it for the trivial reason, it's too woke. There's not enough me in it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you said, you spent centuries and years seeing yourself on the big screen and us having to watch you by force too. So I think you'll be okay.
For sure. But I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say, honestly. Star Wars fan for life right here.
Same. You always got a fan of me, Star Wars.
Yes, sir. But I've been Rodney.
And I've been Jay.
All right, y'all.
We are LATD. Peace.